very good morning and welcome to the BBC News at 9. The naturalist and broadcaster Sir David Attenborough has given a new warning about climate change, telling the BBC the moment of crisis has come. In an exclusive interview to mark the start of the BBC's Our Planet Matters series, Sir David called on governments to do more to tackle the threat before it's too late. Here's our science editor, David Attenborough.
The moment of crisis has come. We can no longer prevaricate. As I speak, Southeast Australia is on fire. Why? Because the temperatures of the Earth are increasing. That is a major national, international catastrophe. And to say, oh, it's nothing to do with the climate, is palpably nonsense. And how has been affecting the climate? We know that perfectly well. So that we have to realise that this is not playing games. This is not just having nice little debates and arguments and then coming away with a compromise. This is an urgent problem that has to be solved. And what is more, we know how to do it. That's the paradoxical thing, that we're refusing to take steps that we know have to be taken. And every year that passes makes those steps more and more difficult to achieve.
What's your take on the degree of urgency that needs to be felt now?
We have to change, and we have to change not by appeals to different kinds of optimism, but to deliberate, compelling, life or death decisions. And so where on the bigger scale are these decisions needed to come next? Answer, China. China is the most populous country in the world, and it is also having problems. It's also having problems with its climate. If the Chinese come and say, not because we are worried about the world, but for our own reasons, we are going to take major steps to curb our carbon output because our climate is changing, we are going to do it. That would be the big change that one could hope would happen.
From your observations and travels, what's your sense about whether people understand the importance to their own lives of the functioning of the natural world?
And the natural world is not just an inanimate object from which you can plunder riches and plunder food, and which is whatever you require. We actually depend upon the natural world for every breath of air we take and every mouthful of food that we eat. That may sound extreme, but if you have the basic understanding of the way that the world works, the natural world works, you know that we breathe oxygen, and that oxygen isn't renewed automatically, it comes from plants. And if you wreck the oceans, and if you knock down the forest, you reduce the amount of oxygen that there is in the atmosphere for us to breathe. We depend upon the oceans more and more and more. As the human population increases, we can't afford to eat in the way that we have, because we can't grow enough to do that. If we're going to exploit the earth in the way that we need to do in order to get food, the way to do that is to produce vegetable food. The steps that have taken place in this country in the last decade have been extraordinary. Many people would never have predicted them. There has been a huge change in public opinion. People can see the problem, particularly young people can see the problem. That must force governments to take action. The nations of the world, and particularly the young people in the nations of the world, can see the writing on the wall rather more clearly than perhaps elder people who are set in their ways and set in their opinions and don't want to shift, and for whom it is easier to say, oh, don't worry about that. I mean, it'll happen. That no longer holds. Young people realise